Johannes has a fan club. Hello, everybody, and welcome back after, I hope, was a relaxing tea or coffee break, as we say. Welcome. And today we are going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to shake it up and propose a different format for the next almost 2 hours together, including lunch. And we're going to pose some questions. We're going to explore together and build up to the celebrate, interrogate, and anticipate theme of this conference, when design thinking truly matters. Johannes and I are going to be having a chat to start off with. I'm just going to make sure that we have our slides working. As many of you may know, my space is teaching and learning, and Johannes as well in his own way. But teaching and learning is an evolving space. As we all know, it's changing. It's no longer that traditional classroom, ivory tower, the academic institutions that traditionally provide that space for teaching and learning. We want to go beyond that and invite you to interrogate that and to think about what have we learned, what have we experienced, what have we been discussing and exploring in these last 3 days. And it's now up to you to help us forge and find a path forward. So this is our invitation for today. Teaching, learning, doing, being, design thinking, all of these, I'll call them emotions almost, are bubbling up to the surface as we start to really rethink what we want to be doing for Africa, within this global context of partners. And today, Johannes and I are going to explore and pose this premise that design thinking is for everyone, and can take different shapes and forms in different places and in different spaces beyond the traditional. And we have a question as we celebrate, interrogate, anticipate. How might we celebrate this richness of the African context of design thinking, but leverage the global connections that we have here today in this space and bring this partnership, bring this newly imagined way of teaching and learning design thinking into a reimagined teaching and learning and being space together? And to do that, I want to welcome Johannes and invite you to share your experience as a springboard or food for thought as we prepare to move in to our co-creation studios together today. So Johannes, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Hoda, and it's a real pleasure to be here. It's a particular pleasure to be here in Cape Town in the new D School, and we talked about celebrating, so allow me to also share some reason for celebrating. With young people, we were on a 2 years design journey in Africa of how we might support young people's drive towards digital innovation for the social good in Africa, a 2 years design journey that we undertook actually with the D School. And it's amazing what has come out of this. And for us, it's a reason to celebrate because what came out of it was YOMA, the Youth Agency Marketplace. And we're very happy to celebrate that 4 weeks ago we crushed the first 100,000 young people on this platform. So it's really nice to be here and to basically talk with you about how young people themselves can actually shape through such a process and can be put at the center of their action.
We were chatting yesterday at the party, if any of you could chat, but we managed to chat. And you were building on this idea, the theme of Ubuntu. Can you kind of take us there? And
Sure. So I think for me it was also an extremely interesting learning journey for myself. I have learned a lot. I have the privilege to be a bit older, but yet work with young people all the time. So that's a real privilege. And so I think what was really important for us is in this process really have young people reach out to other young people, empathize with them, really understand and go in depth of the issues that young people face. And young people came up with two main challenges for the design thinking process. They said one is that many of the projects, they're institution focused, and obviously I'm also a culprit in that. We focus on the project cycles. We focus, and then young people find it very difficult to navigate between different offerings, to build a life story for themselves, to be in charge of their own life story. And so the first thing was, how can we basically reduce fragmentation? How can we build an ecosystem around the young person that puts her or him at the center? And so basically the first challenge they gave us was, put us at the center, we want to be in control, play us first. So that was the first one, against fragmentation and youth centricity. And the second one, and it came interesting from 5 different African countries, they came the same finding through the young people. Second one, they obviously said there are not enough opportunities. Opportunities across Africa are very focused on certain socio-demographic profiles, and they're very focused on certain geographic hotspots, such as Cape Town, obviously. So talent is universal, opportunities are not. How can we increase the opportunities? And so that comes back to me for this whole question of Ubuntu. And the interesting part is that when young people say we want to be at the center of the solution, the difference between what we call an ethical design process, which we went through the values to define, whether the young people in Vienna, or where we did it with a university there, the values they saw were different from the values the African young people saw. And they said, yes, put us in the center, but put us in the center with the community. So we don't want to be taken out of the community, so something that's digitally enabled. We want to be in the community. We want to have the right mixture between online and offline. We want to contribute to each other. Very important to them was fairness, and very important to them was basically the whole question of how can we together lift ourselves up. I think this was very rich.
And how would you say this learning experience or journey, you said they wanted to be outside a traditional kind of learning space.
Yeah.
What kinds of value or add value do you think this offers youth when they're learning about design thinking or when they're learning about anything?
So I think the key really was that in the end it's learning in action. The best way of learning is when you learn, when you engage, when you do something, when you basically exercise all your different parts of your intelligence, your engagements, your emotions. And therefore we very strongly, we have 3 dimensions in Yoma, which is basically a youth-centric marketplace. And we surround young people, or young people surround themselves with 3 dimensions. The first one is impacting. So it's always the young person, how he or she impacts in their community with their peers. So that's basically, you call it volunteering, but it's a volunteering that builds at the same time. And that's all digitally enabled, but the important thing, it builds you while you volunteer. Yeah? It's not extractive, it's constructive. Mm-hmm. That's the first dimension. The second one is the growing. And the growing dimension is really, you could say the learning, but it's learning with small nuggets. It's learning that is linked to what you're actually doing. So you practice what you learn, and you learn while you practice. It's really this feedback between action learning. And all of that is, for us, recorded on a digital CV. And the young person can navigate the different opportunities in a seamless way, so they can put together a life story. And then in the end, when they have their digital CV, it contributes to the third dimension, which is thriving, which is basically now young people have a CV that can be verified, that shows the impact they have created, that shows the skill they have acquired in action, in addition to traditional certificates, and in the end, the difference they have made. So it's an impact CV, impacting on themselves, because they have grown, impacting on their peers and the community, and finally also impacting on the environment. Yeah. So those are the 3 dimensions, and then this CV can be shared and gives a much richer picture of the young person.
That's such a beautiful representation. Thank you of what a learning journey can really look like. So yes, you build the skills or the competencies, the traditional, within a community, in action, with a real life situation, but you can also represent it in a way that is traditionally accepted by employers or other institutions, and it's this added co-curricular or paracurricular, whatever, artifact they have to demonstrate how impactful they are as citizens. I think it's really very powerful message.
And so, just like you said, the key is going back to what the young people really wanted, is they wanted to be in control, they wanted to be at the center, at the core of this ecosystem solution, and the other partners are coming. We are just federating. We are not inventing new things. Any partner can come that shares the same value. That's important. But then they can just be federated out around the young person in a more seamless way. And the second dimension, which has to do more with opportunities, that here in Africa, I think there is obviously a huge potential and there is obviously a huge crisis in terms of what young people can really do for their livelihoods. But we strongly believe that there are new pathways emerging that we don't know yet in the green economy and what we call the impact economy. So in the end, if you look at many of the SDGs, a lot of the financial investments at the global level that go into the green, into digital transformation, into many other things, the key is that in the end, who will achieve that impact at the global scale? And if we know, obviously, the growth trajectory of Africa, it will be African youth that will achieve that. But our role, and that's, I would say, my role, is basically just to step back and let them have the space. And they are taking the space. And just wonderful that also members of our team are here. We are here in, we have grown out of Cape Town together with our labs. And it's great that this is now going even global. Really coming out of here, of a design process, also with the D-School. We're very grateful for that.
Thank you so much for sharing that story to inspire us all to step into a, let's say, a thinking space and to pose a challenge to you all today. And our challenge, as you can see on our screens, is going to be conducted in a slightly different way. So I'm going to just stand up because I'm not that good at not moving around. You heard this story. This way of exposing students to a different way of learning in a different space that's not in an academic institution. And our challenge for today is how might we make the skills and mindsets, the values of design thinking more accessible to people beyond the academic classroom. And here's the important bit. In a symbiotic relationship with other sectors of African society. How many of you have heard the term symbiosis before? Hey, excellent. All right. Anyone want to shout out what they think it means? Maybe someone in the front row who has a loud voice. What does it mean?
It's a relationship in which both parties benefit from the relationship.
It's a mutually beneficial relationship, and in nature, oftentimes, one cannot survive without the other. They become almost dependent on each other to thrive and to grow and to make an impact. So we invite you today to consider this overarching question through a format called a World Café. How many of you have been or conducted or participated in a World Café before? Maybe not so many people, but a few, all right? So a World Café is modeled around this notion that great conversations happen in a coffee shop, right? You sit next to someone, you strike up a conversation, you start to go back and forth and tag off each other's ideas. So World Cafés, we have, I don't know, how many nationalities here? 30-something? 28 nationalities here, so a truly World Café today. And from 11:30 to 12:45, and that's in 10 minutes, you are going to choose and commit to a sector that you want to have a conversation in a cafe style in one of 4 spaces. And we have 4 spaces that we chose because in Africa, things are already happening in these spaces. So social development, youth entrepreneurship, business or corporate business, and the public sector. And we chose them, and there may be other sectors, of course, that are just as important, but we chose them because of what's already happening and bubbling up across the continent. And we want you to choose one, commit to it, and we'll tell you in just a moment how you can move to the different spaces. One of them is here, one of them is Studio 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And as you decide, you will move to these spaces, find a seat, And there will be a set of moderators there to help facilitate the process. You will be co-creating in these studios a new, let's say, direction or ideas as we collect all the wisdom in this space and all these people from the 28 nationalities. So as you follow your passion and choose your studio, we want to think about how we might teach, learn, do, be, design thinking in a symbiotic relationship with these sectors. All right, how does it work? So a World Café is basically people around tables, right? 3 to 4 people. We're going to discuss and synthesize ideas around our big burning question that was just on the screen, and then we're going to ask you 3 main questions and 1 consolidation question. In small groups, you'll start with question 1. You will nominate a host. That host will stay on the table, and then you'll move on to the next question, and then the next question, and then the next question. So every time you tackle a question, are they going to be the same people or different people? Different people. So you'll get to mix and match with all the people in the room in that space and discuss the next question. It will end with a harvest that we will share with you. The moderators and the coaches will harvest all these ideas, both in the physical and the online space as well. So we have 2 parallel universes going on here. And it will flow, as I just described. And there is a kind of set of etiquette. And again, all this will be in your studios. We want to focus on what really matters to you, because it's about what you can bring to this conversation. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance in those 12 to 15 minutes per question to really contribute about what they think. And we want you to be visual. So in each of these spaces, on each table, there'll be markers, there'll be sticky notes, there'll be paper, there are boards, and there are moderators to help guide you. So don't worry if these instructions seem overwhelming. And as in the truly design thinking spirit, we want to build on each other's ideas and listen to understand. All right. Before we move on, a quick recap. What is our invitation for today? How might we make the skills and mindsets of design thinking more accessible to people beyond the academic classroom in a symbiotic relation with other sectors of African society? Our first question. What needs our attention and care if we want to create accessible opportunities for learning and doing design thinking in Africa, particularly in one of these 4 sectors? So that's your first question. What needs our attention and care to make it more accessible? We'll spend 15 minutes on that. Who, what are the people, institutions, and spaces who would care the most to get involved in teaching, learning, and doing design thinking in Africa, particularly in Sector X? In an ideal world, what could an accessible design thinking learning experience look like within a win-win partnership between academia and your sector? And what are the steps that we need to take to foster this? And finally, from what emerges in your space, what seeds might we plant together today that could have the greatest chance of bringing these skills, mindsets, and most importantly, impact of design thinking to the partners and the space in that sector? All right. We now have a challenge. And there are, I don't know how many people here, over 100, maybe 150. We don't have 320, but maybe there are people hiding in the rooms, I don't know. But we're going to take a moment to decide which of these sectors would you like to contribute your wisdom to. And not only your wisdom that you bring into the conference, but what we have learned and done over the last 2 and a bit days, especially this morning. And take your belongings, take your bags, take your pens, take your sticky notes, and there are more in the spaces, and choose youth development, which will be in this, or youth entrepreneurship, which will be in this space here. And we have Colette, who's going to be moderating that space. Atrium. We have studios 1 and 2, all right? And that will be, if I'm not mistaken, somebody remind me. Corporate business, all right, 1 and 2. And in 3 and 4, we will have the public sector and social development with a team of coaches who are moderating those 2 spaces. So you have youth entrepreneurship, business, social development, and public sector. The name of each sector is on a big flip chart paper on the door of the room. So if you wander around here or wander around upstairs, you'll find the space.
Thank you for that information. Can you explain how do you differentiate social development and public sector with this exercise?
All right, how would you define it? What's your understanding, right? It's how you think. All right, so if social development is non-governmental organizations and public is government, that could be your understanding, right? But if you bring a different understanding, please bring that understanding into the space. That's fine. That's totally fine. All right, are we ready? Yes? Are we ready?
Yes.
Yes? All right. Off we go. Jenny, do you want to add anything? Just a moment.
Please clear your tables. Take your bags. We're going to be
Hannes,
working
thank you
on
so
the
much. It was
tables.
just
So laptops
perfect.
away, coffee cups away. We'll have your coffee cup near, but we're going to put we're writing on the table cloths, our flip chart paper. Thank you. Wow, welcome back everybody from the World Café. We've had all these speakers delighting us and inspiring us and informing us over these 3 days, and this was a chance for everyone in the room to bring their knowledge and ideas and opinions and their being from wherever you come from. And that was the opportunity here, and we imagined that this would be a pinnacle of the 3 days in a way to distill all these ideas that have been shared and for you to put that into some form together. So we're going to now hear what happened in all the rooms. And we were not only meeting in this room, but also online. We had online delegates who were doing a parallel World Café in Zoom breakaway rooms and changing groups and tables just the way you did in the physical tables. So I just want to acknowledge our incredible technical team who has made all these technical hybrid acrobatics possible. Thank you. And thank you to Hoda and all our room hosts for embarking on this really experimental venture with us. So let us hear from all of them. We've got 4 hosts who were in the online space, of which one of them is here. The others were in Cairo. And let's see them. They're in the Zoom room waiting to join us.
Welcome.
There
Hello
we go.
from Cairo.
Lovely. And then we've got our room hosts who are here in the room. Thank you so much. The art of synthesis. There was a lot of ideas and information and sticky notes, and they have had a very short time to try and distill that into something. No pressure. Really, it's just zooming out, stepping back, and asking, what are we being called to do? What is it in each of these sectors that we need to do next if we are to bring teaching and learning? Well, let's hear what our question was, Hoda.
All right. I think everyone remembers the question, but I'm going to repeat it once again. How might we make the skills, the values, the mindsets of design thinking more accessible to people beyond the academic classroom? And most importantly, in the symbiotic relationship with other sectors of society in Africa. All right. Shall we
Right,
kick
so
it
let's
off?
begin with the youth entrepreneurship sector. Teaching, learning, and doing design thinking in youth entrepreneurship. Colette, will you come and share what happened here in the atrium and what you and Mark managed to distill? Please step up and share with us.
Thank you very much. I think the youth entrepreneurship group had amazing drawings and sketches, and it was so great to be part of that, so thank you. The top 3 findings were listen and empathize before building, start planting seeds early and within yourself, mentorship is critical, connections are essential to ensure that critical mass is achieved.
Oh, wonderful. Down to those simple ideas. Thank you so much.
And if you've seen the walls in the rooms, the physical rooms, you'll know that that was not an easy task to synthesize, to crystallize those 3 main ideas from all the great ideas, thoughts, doodles, and drawings we had on those sheets.
Yeah. Let's hear from Tebogo. Tebogo was joined by Mona in the online space and will share the top 3 findings. What are we being called to do?
Okay, so the 3 findings that we have are what are the specific examples that are relatable within the African context that DT can help in addressing social and environmental issues. The second one is explain the impact of what DT can do to encourage local government support. And the third one being how can we encourage a culture of young people who are driven by solving problems within their communities from elementary level and integrate DT into different curriculums.
Some really nice focused questions for us to take forward. Wonderful.
Right.
So now we go into the social development sector. What was discovered and what emerged in this room? Annie, would you share with us?
Yes, thank you, everybody. Many pearls of wisdom up in Studio 3. The first being, be sure to acknowledge and tap into the inherent intelligence and genius of the place. Secondly, it is good to identify the local champions, but even more important, to locate the gatekeepers. Often they are not whom you expect them to be. Get them on board, and you may be amazed. And then the third one was, point out the relevance of design thinking mindsets for communities. Give them tangible examples of its value. And finally, just get started, but move at the speed of trust.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
So, Rian.
All right. Rehem, are you ready to share the online room?
Yes.
What were your main
Yes.
insights, findings?
I hope that you're hearing me okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay, perfect. So we came up within our room with 3 main themes. Training is believing, and basically training youth and also the social development institutions into believing in design thinking as a human-centered design, because this is what will build empathy and partnership, and also accessibility to reach, having places that are accessible to different people, whether through tech, easy to get in access and money-wise access. And our third theme was academia and real life bridging. So it's very important that academia always needs a way to connect its students to real life, and this is where the partnership with the social development comes to be. So these are our 3 parts.
Thank you, Rehem. And
Wonderful.
who's next?
To the business sector, let's hear what happened in Studio 1 and 2 with corporate business, and let's hear from Zilfa.
Zulfa.
Hi, everyone. So what we found was that the top 3 ideas was break down hierarchy to hear other voices more along transparency and having a common vision. And then community of practice among academia and corporations, so action learning orientated to solve real problems. And then to break down the barriers of jargon and skill deficits so that you can articulate the mutual benefit of design thinking.
Yeah.
Here it is again, language. Thank you.
Excellent. Then is Farah. Am I saying
Yes,
your name
Farah.
right?
Farah, are you ready?
Yep.
Great. Go ahead.
So we came up with bringing more people without formal academic qualifications into design thinking and blending the traditional knowledge of design thinking in the corporate world. Establishing like a consulting model of collaboration between the academia and the business, where the university is providing like frameworks and guidance and works like in a pipeline sort of model, and establishing like a safe space to meet, exchange, and experiment with the design thinking, and making sure like emphasizing to the corporate that failure is okay, and this is just like for like, you know, experimenting in a safe space, and overall like have incentives to the corporates generally. Thank you.
Thanks, Farah.
Wow, wonderful. And then we go on to the public sector. So can we hear from Rob? Thank you.
So I hope I do the room justice. I think the first one was around finding people who are wanting change. Where is that change sprouting? The second one was finding your champion in that space, someone that will nurture and drive, whether that's the flag bearer or the lone soldier. And the third point was the need to tell design thinking stories to close those feedback loops and to help the iteration between and by those stakeholders. And I'm reminded of Magendi's reference yesterday, until the lion learns to write, the stories will always glorify the tales of the hunt from the hunter's perspective. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. All right, Ismat from Cairo.
Hi.
The online room.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So first thing we started with was that there is a need to change and challenge the hierarchy, the very idea of what the government and the public sector should look like, and reshape it. And this can be by leveraging the lessons that we were taught by the pandemic and how it unearthed a very severe need for change. Our second main insight was that the public sector can understand the benefits of the process through success stories of design thinking. And these success stories should be told in an accessible and a way that are easy to connect to. And they should be used to amplify the voices of communities and civil actors. Our last main insight was this using more accessible language in academia, especially when we are talking about design thinking, and using real-world challenges from the public sector in research. So for options for theses, for graduate students, for undergraduate students, and having them connect around these public sector challenges. And this could give co-ownership around solutions and recommendations. And in a way, this would allow for easier communication between all three main actors, the public sector, the communities, and academia.
Thank you, Ismet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is our feedback from our 4 rooms. Please give yourselves a round of applause.
Wonderful, wonderful work. Truly collective wisdom.
So there's some distillations from all of these conversations that you had in the room. But I would like to ask, we have enough time, and before we get to the last part of the session, what has not been said? What have we missed? Who might not be in the room whose voice needs to be heard, and what would they say in this conversation? So I'd like to offer, thank you, Rob and Colette, stepping up, agile. Anyone who would like to share, what has not been said? What else? And what would they say, those who are not here and need to be heard, in response to this question? How do we take design thinking out the box, out of the formal academic classroom, beyond the way we've been doing teaching and learning as we've inherited for so many years? How do we get out of that and into these sectors where design thinking can really make a difference? Jose.
Hi. And it probably was talked or shared in the teams. I just didn't hear any feedback about children, about young age, and how far can we go, how far should we go in terms of taking design thinking to, in the African space.
So children are not in this room, and they're often not. And how can we hear them? I heard ideas too during the conversations about, we're talking about youth entrepreneurship, but don't start there. Start early.
Early.
Start as early as you can at schools and let those voices be heard in those processes. Do we have another? Can we raise a hand? I don't know where the mic is. Thank you. We need the mic.
Thank you. So my thought is that the impacts of climate change are reaching the most vulnerable populations, and how do our ideas impact those populations, and how can we work with them to mitigate the effects of climate change?
Do you have any ideas of what the answers might be?
Well, again, I think it goes back to working with communities rather than for them.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Has anyone else got a response to that? How does design thinking come into action in the climate crisis that we're facing and the effect it's having on populations?
It's a big one.
Hmm?
It's a big one.
It's a big one.
There's someone over there, and there's
Bruce.
I think what might be missing, and it has been said before, is the voice of the non-human other. And what does a river want to be? What does a mountain want to be? How do we make space for these agencies to come into the picture? I believe in agency in the massively plural, and I think that we need to widen our conversations to include the entire biosphere, which makes it hard. But nobody said it was going to be easy to engage with all sentient beings, but living and non-living.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that. And I think before we come to the next question, we say human-centered design. The conversation's expanded to life-centered design, and I'm no expert other than listening a lot over the last few months. And when we say human, what notion of human and humanity do we have? And if we see ourselves as separate from nature, then we won't include the river and the mountain and the planet. But if we consider that that is us and we are nature, and we can't consider ourselves as separate from, then we put that all together, and then human-centered design is life-centered design and brings the planet into it.
We had one more question, I think, somewhere. I think that's it.
There was no? Then I will take us to
our
the next
final
stop.
call.
So on your Event Mobi app, in the session, even if you're in the room and if you're following online, please open your app and go to a live poll that we have set up. Thank you. And this takes us to the next phase of this conversation, bringing all these ideas from up here onto the ground and into the steps that we take next. And we are asking you, from what has emerged here in these World Café conversations in these 3 days, what contribution do you wish to make? And your responses will not be anonymous. We want this as data. We want you to put your hand up and say, I'd like to continue a conversation after the d.confestival. We want to hear from you. If you're saying, this is my commitment, even if you can't sign your name on it and put your signature on it, what are you wishing? What is your desire to do, to contribute, to commit to?
What do you feel you're being called to do?
Yes.
After these 3 days? There's a poll on the event app?
There's a poll. Are people finding it?
No?
There we go.
Great.
And we are beginning to visualize it on the screen. These are the responses. So in this session, on your Event Mobi app, clicking on this session,
It's right in the app, right, Jenny?
Perhaps David needs a mic. David Wilson from Participate, him and his team have set up the Event Mobi app for us.
Good afternoon, everybody. So it's not the mentee poll, that's for later in the session. There is a live poll, so to the top you just click on live poll, you'll see that it's there. So go to the session, so navigate to the last session in the program. No. Oh. So
David,
the session is
can you
titled as d.confestival, session 2 on the 14th of October, and there is a poll.
Right, 14 October,
Today's date,
session 2, live poll.
there's some answers coming in on screen.
Let's use this opportunity to get practical.
Thanks very much.
You know, what do you wish to contribute?
Maybe something you heard today that spoke to you and you really want to commit to and take forward. Lots of conversations in all the rooms.
We can get specific. In your sector, there's the complex problem of child malnutrition, early childhood development.
Mentorship. We have some potential mentors.
Yes.
Stepping up.
If you need a hand with the app, please raise your hand.
All right.
Annie.
You have to download it or open it.
Program.
Oh, it's doing that. No, it should take you directly to. For those of you who haven't downloaded the app and you're downloading it for the first time, it's asking for a code. So maybe David.
No. And if anyone is brave enough and clear enough in their wish, we invite you to share with us. If there's anything particular that you want to know about, absolutely yes, this is what I want to do, or this is what I invite, and if anyone wants to join me, this is what I'm being called to do. Is there anybody who wishes to share? We have a question here.
We've made so many great connections with everyone here. How do we take that forward? It's just an observation or a question.
Yeah. So for those connections, you know what those connections are that you want to take forward. The Event Mobi app allows you to connect with other delegates. Everyone is on that app. You go into the delegates list and you find them and you send them a message and they will receive it. Or you meet up, you exchange details and you do it. Take it forward. And this space continues to be a place for those collaborations, not just in this building, but what is enabled by what's happening in this building. Right, shall we read some of what we've got on here? I see people are still typing and sharing. Someone's Gmail account.
No. We're going to have it up in a minute. There you go.
All right, let's read out some of what's on the app. So, spread the design thinking virus, make others contagious. I know who said that. I would like to use the design thinking knowledge in practice in the public sector and general political knowledge. How do older ideas complement design thinking and vice versa? I'm new to design thinking. I felt a strong resonance with a philosophy that I will now use to make my life more integrated and effective wherever I find myself next working. Designing the Ubuntu Manifesto as leverage to shift the mindset and provide guidance for decision makers.
Contribute to deepening empathy skills, including creating psychological safety, that came up quite a lot, and emerging the empathic self through coaching and training. Well, this is a long one. Take the connections I've made forward in my life and try to use design thinking to affect change in my communities. And I think connecting with each other through the app and even beyond, I hope that we all connect beyond. Maybe there's some way to create a permanent space in the future where we can all connect across Africa. That would be great. That's me. I commit to staying humble in order to hear the voices of others, learning from Professor Mugundi yesterday. Yes. Taking design thinking to all student communities. Wow, there are lots of these. Shifting from designing for the community to designing with the community. And I think we could go on and on, right? Do you want to do a couple more?
Richard, ready? Anybody? So much, everybody. Thank you for your contributions. We have them. Connect with each other in the space, on the app, in your networks. I just thank you, each and every one of you for being here in these days, and to all our speakers who have brought their incredible contributions to us all.
And this won't be the end of this conversation. Hopefully we'll carry it forward with some great ideas for design thinking for Africa. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Hoda.